She trusted him with everything, her heart, her dreams, her life. But in the moment she needed him the most, he betrayed her in the cruelest way. This is the story of love, trust, and heartbreak, a story that will make you question who you can truly rely on. Stay with me as we uncover how a promise meant forever turned into the ultimate betrayal. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Before I begin my story, I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment writing which state or country you are listening from. It always warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. So now, let me tell you this story. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. My name is Sarah. I live in a small town just outside London, a place where everyone knows everyone else, and secrets rarely stay hidden for long. I grew up in a family that valued love, honesty, and trust above all else. I always believed that love was supposed to make life brighter, easier, and safer. But I was wrong. I didn't know then that sometimes love could be the most dangerous thing a person could ever place their trust in. From the moment I met him, I thought I had found the kind of love most people only dream of. His name was Daniel. Tall, handsome, and always full of charm, Daniel seemed like the kind of man who could hold the weight of the world and still make you feel like the only person who mattered. He smiled, and it was impossible not to melt. He spoke, and every word felt like it was meant just for me. I thought he was my forever. We met in university, during a rainy afternoon when my umbrella had turned inside out, and he had offered me his. It felt like a cliché at first, a meet-cute straight out of a movie, but as I got to know him, I realized there was something different about Daniel. He made me laugh like no one else could, and he listened in a way that made me feel truly heard. I thought I had found a partner who would walk beside me through every storm. By the time we graduated, our love had grown into something undeniable. We moved in together in a small apartment in London, working long hours, dreaming about the future, and making plans as if nothing could ever come between us. He promised me forever. I believed him. At first, everything was perfect, or at least that's what it seemed like. Daniel would surprise me with flowers for no reason. He would send me messages in the middle of the day just to say he loved me, and he always seemed to know exactly what I needed even before I did. I trusted him with my heart, my dreams, and my most private thoughts. I let him into every part of my life because I thought love meant vulnerability, and I had never been more willing to be vulnerable with anyone. Then came the small changes. At first, they were easy to overlook. He started coming home late without explanation. He seemed distracted, preoccupied, and occasionally distant. I asked him if everything was okay, and he would smile and say, "I'm just tired, Sarah. Work's been crazy, that's all." I wanted to believe him. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was wrong. The first time I saw the signs clearly, I remember it like it happened yesterday. I had gone to his phone to check a message he had asked me to read for him, just a silly thing about dinner plans, and that's when I saw it. A string of texts from a woman I had never met, calling him my love and saying things that made my heart shatter in slow motion. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages, each one a knife twisting deeper into my chest. My heart felt like it had been ripped out, and yet I couldn't look away. When I confronted him that night, Daniel's reaction surprised me even more than the betrayal itself. He didn't apologize. He didn't cry. He looked at me with an expression that I couldn't read, a strange mix of guilt and indifference, and said, "Sarah, it's not what you think. You're overreacting." But I knew the truth. Deep down, I always had. For weeks, I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself that maybe it was a misunderstanding. But every lie he told, every excuse he made, every fleeting moment of coldness chipped away at the foundation of trust one had built my life on. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home, a guest in a life I had thought was mine. My friends noticed the change, too. They would ask if everything was okay, and I would smile, forcing myself to pretend that I wasn't falling apart. But the truth was, every time I saw him, every time I heard his voice, I felt a mix of love and fear that I couldn't explain. I loved him more than anything in the world, and yet he was slowly destroying me from the inside out. Then came the day that changed everything. It started like any other day. I woke up early, made coffee, and left a note for Daniel wishing him luck for a meeting he had at work. I didn't know that while I was preparing for my day, he was sending messages to someone else, arranging meetings, creating plans that had nothing to do with me. That afternoon, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise him. I wanted to make him smile again. I never expected what I saw next. Daniel was sitting on the couch, and there she was, sitting close, laughing at a joke only she seemed to understand. I froze, my body refusing to move, my mind screaming. The betrayal wasn't just a message on a phone anymore. It was real. It was tangible. It was happening in front of my eyes. And in that moment, I realized that the man who had promised forever had already given his heart to someone else. I ran from the apartment, tears blurring my vision. I wandered the streets of London, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. People passed me by, unaware of the storm raging inside me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him until he understood what he had done. But all I could do was let the pain consume me. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the empty space beside me where he used to sleep. Every memory we had shared played in my head like a cruel movie, our laughter, our plans, our dreams, all tainted by the truth of his betrayal. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could someone I loved so deeply, someone I had trusted with everything, hurt me like this? But even as the heartbreak threatened to swallow me whole, a small voice inside me whispered that I couldn't give up on myself. I had to find strength somewhere, even if it felt impossible. I had to survive this betrayal and find a way to rebuild my life, piece by piece. And so, that night marked the beginning of my journey, not just through heartbreak, but through self-discovery, resilience, and ultimately, the quest to reclaim the person I had been before he shattered my world. After that devastating day, everything in my life felt shattered. The apartment that had once felt like home now felt like a prison of memories, each corner reminding me of him, of his promises, and of the betrayal that had changed everything. I couldn't stay there, couldn't bear to look at the life we had built together, so I packed a small bag and left. I moved back in with my parents, hoping their presence would help me find some semblance of peace. But even there, I couldn't escape the shadow of what had happened. Every message, every call from friends, every passing reminder of Daniel made my heart pound with a mixture of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could someone I loved so completely, someone who promised forever, do this to me? For the first few weeks, I shut myself off from the world. I stopped talking to people, stopped going out, and even avoided answering calls. I felt numb, as if the part of me that believed in love had died. My friends tried to reach me, sending texts filled with encouragement, but I didn't have the energy to respond. I wanted to scream, cry, and disappear all at once. Then one evening, I received a message from a mutual friend. She didn't sugarcoat it. She simply said, "Sarah, I saw Daniel today. He's with her. Not hiding anymore. You deserve better." That message hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just a betrayal behind closed doors anymore. It was out in the open. My world had been stripped of the illusions I had held onto, leaving only pain and anger behind. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, my phone clutched in my trembling hands, staring at the screen for what felt like hours. I wanted to reach out, to confront him, to demand answers, but I also knew it wouldn't change anything. He had already made his choice, and I had to make mine. The following days were the hardest I had ever faced. Every small task felt monumental. Eating, sleeping, even stepping outside felt like climbing a mountain. I began keeping a journal, writing down my thoughts, my anger, my tears. Writing became my therapy, the only place where I could be brutally honest without fear of judgment. Through the pages of that journal, I began to understand something crucial. This betrayal wasn't my fault. I had loved wholeheartedly, trusted completely, and given everything. The fact that he chose to betray me didn't diminish my worth. It only revealed the kind of person he truly was. That realization, though painful, was the first step toward reclaiming myself. One night, while I was reflecting on everything, I received a call from Daniel. My heart raced, a mixture of fear, anger, and lingering love coursing through me. "Sarah, can we talk?" he said. His voice sounded calm, almost casual, as if nothing had happened. My hands trembled as I held the phone. I wanted to scream, to hang up, to tell him to disappear from my life forever. But curiosity and the need for closure kept me listening. He told me he missed me, that he regretted what had happened, and that he still loved me. He tried to explain himself, to justify his actions. But the words felt hollow. The betrayal wasn't just about a moment of weakness. It was about the choices he had made repeatedly, knowingly, while I trusted him blindly. Every word he said now felt like another layer of pain being pressed into my heart. I realized something then. Closure wouldn't come from him. It wouldn't come from apologies or explanations. It would come from me, from reclaiming my life, my trust in myself, and my ability to love again, on my terms, without anyone betraying me again. As days turned into weeks, I slowly began to rebuild. I took long walks, joined a book club, and even started volunteering at a local charity. Each small step helped me reconnect with the person I had been before the betrayal, a person who believed in love, kindness, and hope. But even as I began to heal, the memories of Daniel and his betrayal lingered. The pain didn't disappear, it transformed. It became a quiet reminder of my strength, a fuel to never let someone's betrayal define me. And yet, despite my efforts to move forward, a part of me still wondered, how could someone so close, so trusted, hurt me in ways I could never imagine? One evening, as I was sorting through old photographs, I found a picture of us from our first anniversary. We were smiling, holding hands, and so full of hope. My chest tightened, and tears blurred my vision. I realized then that love, even when it ends in betrayal, leaves its mark, not as a wound, but as a lesson. A lesson about trust, about boundaries, and about valuing oneself above all else. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Because Daniel's betrayal wasn't just a chapter. It was a storm that would come back in ways I could never predict, challenging everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and forgiveness. And just when I thought I had begun to find my footing, a call arrived that would shake my world all over again. Who could be calling at this hour? And what news would force Sarah to confront the betrayal she thought she had left behind? The phone call that came that evening shook me to my core. It wasn't just any call, it was from a number I didn't recognize, and yet somehow I knew it would change everything. My hands trembled as I answered. "Sarah, it's time you know the truth," the voice said. It was calm, almost chilling. I asked who it was, but the line went silent. Then, I heard words I never expected. "Daniel is not the man you think he is. He's been deceiving you and everyone around him." I felt my stomach drop. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Every betrayal, every lie, every sleepless night flooded my mind. I wanted to hang up, to pretend I hadn't heard a thing, but something inside me, a quiet, burning part of me, said I had to know more. The next day, I confronted Daniel. I went to his apartment, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear, anger, and anticipation. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I just walked in. And there he was, calm, collected, sitting in the same spot he had been when I first saw her with him. "Sarah," he began, trying to take my hand. But I stepped back, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "Don't," I whispered. "I'm done listening to your lies." He tried to explain, to justify, to paint himself as a victim of circumstance. He said he had been confused, that he had loved me, but there was someone else. My mind screamed, "How could you?" I looked at him, my voice trembling. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? How much you've broken me?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he looked away, and in that silence, I realized something important. He had no real remorse.
No genuine regret.
The man who promised forever had only ever promised to himself, to satisfy his own desires. I left his apartment, tears streaming, heart-shattering, but a small part of me felt free. Free from waiting for him to apologize, free from hoping he would change, free from the illusion of a love that never truly existed. Over the next few weeks, I dug deeper. I contacted the mutual friends, pieced together conversations, and slowly uncovered the full extent of his deception. He had been leading a double life, dating multiple women while pretending to be committed to me. Every smile, every "I love you," every plan for the future had been part of a carefully constructed lie. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was calculated, cold, and deliberate. I felt my blood boil as I realized how completely I had been manipulated. Every promise, every tender moment, every memory I had cherished was now tainted. But amidst the pain, I found a strange clarity. I realized that Daniel's betrayal, as devastating as it was, had awakened something in me: strength. I would not allow his lies to define me. I would not allow the pain to consume me. I would reclaim my life, my trust, and my power. I started planning carefully. Not revenge in the way most people think, anger, harm, or public humiliation, but justice. I wanted him to see the truth reflected back at him. I wanted him to understand the weight of the life he had destroyed. Then came the day I saw him again, not at his apartment, but at a gathering we both attended. He was laughing, charming, surrounded by people who admired him. The man who had caused me endless nights of tears and heartache looked happy. But I had changed. The fear, the helplessness, the desperation, it was gone. In its place was quiet confidence and controlled fury. I approached him, my step steady, my eyes unwavering. "Daniel," I said, my voice calm but sharp, "do you know what you've done to me?" He looked surprised, as if he hadn't expected me to face him. "Sarah," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't. Save your excuses. Save your apologies. I don't need them. You took everything from me emotionally, but you will never take my life, my happiness, or my dignity." And in that moment, the power shifted. I wasn't the broken girl who had wandered the streets in tears anymore. I was standing tall, reclaiming myself in front of the man who thought he could destroy me. But as I walked away, I felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. I had confronted him, uncovered the truth, and started my journey toward healing, but the story wasn't over. There were consequences yet to come, secrets still buried, and a reckoning that Daniel would eventually have to face. Little did I know, someone from his past, someone he thought he had left behind, was watching everything unfold. And soon, Sarah would discover that betrayal has layers deeper than even she could imagine. Who is watching Daniel from the shadows? And what truth will Sarah uncover next that could change everything? After confronting Daniel, I knew I couldn't go back to being the same Sarah. I had been broken, betrayed, and left in a world that suddenly felt cruel and unfair. But now, for the first time since the betrayal, I felt a spark of clarity. I couldn't undo what had happened, but I could reclaim my life. The first step was myself. I started waking up early, exercising, journaling, and meditating. Each morning, I reminded myself that my worth was not tied to someone who had chosen deception over love. I began small, cooking my favorite meals, listening to music that made me feel alive, reconnecting with friends who had been patient with me. But rebuilding wasn't easy. Every corner of my life reminded me of Daniel. His messages, our old photos, even the small things like the coffee mug he had once given me, all of it felt like shards of glass in my heart. I had to find ways to let go without erasing my memories. I had to turn pain into power. I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping women who had faced betrayal, abuse, or heartbreak in their own lives. Hearing their stories, seeing their strength, made me realize that my pain was not unique, but my response could be extraordinary. I could rise above it. I could transform heartbreak into something meaningful, something that empowered not just me but others too. Then came the day when I finally decided to take action against Daniel, not with anger, but with truth. I gathered proof of his lies, messages, social media activity, and testimonies from friends who had witnessed his double life. Every photo, every screenshot, Every conversation was a piece of the puzzle showing his deception. I published my story anonymously online at first, an emotional account of love, trust, and betrayal. Within hours, the story went viral. Women and men from all over reached out, sharing their own experiences, thanking me for speaking the truth and validating their pain. I realized then that my heartbreak had a purpose. My betrayal had become a beacon of awareness for others. Daniel's reaction was predictable but bitter to watch. He tried to contact me, deny everything, and manipulate the narrative. But the power had shifted. This time, I was in control.
I didn't respond.
I didn't explain. I let the truth speak for itself, and it did, louder than any lie he could tell. As weeks turned into months, I began to feel lighter, freer, and stronger. The nights of tears and doubt gradually faded into nights of reflection and hope. I started meeting new people, building connections, and slowly opening my heart, not to Daniel, not to betrayal, but to life itself. One afternoon, a friend called me urgently. "Sarah, you need to see this," she said. I hurried to her house, confused. She showed me a news article about Daniel, his lies, infidelities, and manipulations exposed publicly. The same people he had tried to fool were now seeing the truth. The man who had once caused me endless nights of sorrow was finally facing the consequences of his actions. A strange sense of peace washed over me. I didn't feel satisfaction or revenge. I felt liberation. I realized that the world had a way of balancing itself, of showing the truth eventually, and I didn't need to carry the burden of his reckoning myself. But even as I began to heal, I knew the journey wasn't over. The scars of betrayal would always remain, a reminder of both pain and resilience. Yet now, those scars were no longer chains. They were symbols of strength, courage, and the power to rise above even the deepest heartbreak. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer, and I allowed myself to dream again. Not of Daniel, not of love that betrayed me, but of a life where I could love freely, trust wisely, and live fully. I realized that betrayal, no matter how cruel, cannot take away the light within you unless you allow it to. And as I closed my eyes that night, I whispered to myself, I am stronger than my heartbreak. I am the author of my own story, and no one, not even the person I trusted most, can ever take that away from me. Cliffhanger for part 4/lead into part 5. Little did I know, life had one final twist in store, a test that would challenge not just my heart, but my courage, my choices, and the lessons I had learned from betrayal. Little did I know, life had one final twist in store, a test that would challenge not just my heart, but my courage, my choices, and the lessons I had learned from betrayal. Months had passed since Daniel's betrayal first shattered my world. The pain had left deep scars, but it had also given me a clarity I had never known before. I was no longer the same girl who had cried in the streets, feeling powerless and alone. I had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Every day was a new lesson. Some days were harder than others, when memories of our laughter or small daily routines would hit me like a wave. I would find myself staring at a coffee mug he had given me or a photo of us smiling together, and my chest would tighten. But I had learned to breathe through the pain, to remind myself that those were lessons, not chains. One morning, as I sipped my tea and watched the sunrise over London, I received a message from a journalist. Daniel's story, the truth of his deceit and lies, had gained international attention. His reputation was tarnished, his manipulations exposed. The same people he had deceived were now speaking out, sharing their stories, and holding him accountable. I felt a strange mix of emotions, vindication, relief, and above all, peace. I realized that the world had its way of balancing itself. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to confront him again. Justice had been served through truth, and I was free. But more importantly, I had learned a lesson that no betrayal could ever take from me. My self-worth was not dependent on anyone else. I was whole, complete, and deserving of love that honored me, not tore me apart. The next few weeks became a journey of rediscovery. I returned to the hobbies I had abandoned for him: painting, journaling, and photography. Each stroke of the brush, each word on the page, each photograph captured a piece of my rebirth. I started waking up earlier, running along the Thames in the mornings, feeling the crisp air fill my lungs, reminding me I was alive, and that life had more to offer than sorrow. I reconnected with old friends, some of whom I had lost touch with because I had been
Consumed by the relationship.
They reminded me of the person I once was, vibrant, joyful, fearless. Being around them, laughing and sharing stories, I realized how much I had let myself fade for someone who didn't deserve me. I also began volunteering more actively, helping women who had faced betrayal, abuse, or heartbreak. Listening to their stories reminded me of the universality of pain, but also of the resilience of the human spirit. I met women who had lost everything and still stood tall. I saw the same strength reflected in their eyes that I was slowly rediscovering in myself. Their courage fueled mine. Then one evening, at a small gathering hosted by my volunteer group, I met someone new. Not Daniel, not anyone who reminded me of the past, but someone genuine, kind, and present. His name was Alex. He wasn't flashy or dramatic. He didn't make grand gestures. But his warmth, his patience, and the way he truly listened made me feel safe. We talked for hours that night, laughing and sharing small secrets, discovering common dreams. There was no rush, no promises of forever. Just a simple connection built on respect, honesty, and warmth. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope without fear. I realized that heartbreak had not destroyed me. It had prepared me to recognize true love when it appeared, to value myself, and to never settle for less than I deserved. I also allowed myself to grieve fully. I cried when I needed to, I screamed when I felt anger, and I wrote down every painful thought. I accepted that healing was not linear, and that some days would still bring sadness. But with every tear, I felt lighter, stronger, and more certain of who I was. As I walked home that night from a volunteer event, the streets of London sparkling under the evening lights, I thought about the journey I had been through, the love, the betrayal, the tears, and the healing. Every moment had shaped me, every heartbreak had strengthened me, and I understood something crucial. Sometimes, the person who betrays you teaches you the most important lessons about yourself. I smiled to myself and whispered, "Thank you for showing me my strength. Thank you for letting me find the person I am meant to be." Daniel was a chapter in my life, a painful one, yes, but necessary. I realized that the anger I had carried for so long was now replaced by understanding. He had shown me what I would never accept in my life again. His betrayal had forced me to confront my worth, my boundaries, and my resilience. And as the city lights flickered around me, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The heartbreak that once defined me no longer had power. I was free, whole, and ready to embrace life on my own terms. Over the following months, I traveled to cities I had dreamed of seeing. Paris, Rome, and even small villages in Scotland. Each trip was an act of self-love, a reminder that my happiness did not depend on anyone else. I journaled each experience, took countless photographs, and slowly, piece by piece, rebuilt my life. And then came another gift, unexpected, simple, and beautiful. One quiet evening, Alex and I sat by the Thames, watching the reflections of the city lights dance on the water. No grand promises, no pressure, just two people connecting honestly. I realized that love, when it comes after healing, is not desperate or clinging. It is steady, supportive, and full of respect. I could feel the difference in every smile, every laugh, every shared silence. From that day forward, I carried no bitterness, no regret, only gratitude for the lessons, for the growth, and for the new beginnings that awaited. I had faced betrayal, survived it, and emerged stronger than ever. And in that strength, I discovered a truth that no betrayal could ever take away. Love begins with oneself, and from there, everything else falls into place. I understood that happiness isn't found in someone else's promises, but in your own courage to heal and embrace life fully. I had learned to trust myself, to honor my heart, and to open it to love that nurtures rather than destroys. The sun rose again each day, painting the skies in brilliant colors, reminding me that life goes on and that every ending, no matter how painful, carries the seeds of a beautiful new beginning. And as I stepped into this new chapter, I finally felt what it meant to be free, not just from Daniel, not just from heartbreak, but from fear, doubt, and the shadows of the past. I had promised myself that I would live fully, love wisely, and never let betrayal define me again. And for the first time in years, I truly believed it.